Well, hello everybody, ching ching. We're almost at the end of the year. Welcome back to Solutions with Chanti. And here we broadcast from the heart of the Ankara field and back with spiritual forensics. Our awesome Beverli Rhodes, who is we co-host. I want to say she's my co-host, but I think I'm her co-host. We just hang out together and we just shed our spiritual eyes on cases, past, present, cold cases to see, yeah, just from a spiritual perspective, things that the cops may have missed, right? Deliberately or otherwise, or accidentally, right? Welcome, everybody. Yay, Lisa D, Linda, and to everybody in the chat. Also, nice to see you. Solutions with Chanti, nice to see you as well. Okay, well, before we bring on Beverli, I just have a couple of announcements. And we also have our amazing I want to say Christmas, but it's CRACKERMISS giveaway. So I'm going to be telling you about that in just a minute. So let's just have a look at our schedule for the rest of the week. We are now Tuesday, and of course, Beverli and I, and we're talking about Jack the Ripper, one of the most notorious serial killers in history, and never been solved. Lots of rumors about who Jack the Ripper was. So we're going to be looking into that tonight. So I'm looking forward to this one for sure. And earlier on, the mini-series, part 8, and we're talking about the 7th tone, which is you. You are the 7th tone from the which is basically the recipient of the 6 angles of the hexagon. So that's a great little, again, part 8 of the mini-series. So check that out. Jessie, we are not live tomorrow. Jessie and I won't be live for the next 2 weeks, tomorrow as well as the 24th, but we should be back on the 31st again to look at a little New Year's broadcast. So watch the schedule for that as well. Friday, yes, another drop-in with Chanti. Come check out what's happening, whatever I've seen on my screen this week, and we delve into that. Leo Zagami will be on this Friday and not next Friday. So join us at 7 o'clock South African time, SAST, Central Africa time, GMT +2, all the same thing with Leo Zagami. And then, of course, the Reham on Saturday, and then the Sunday loop on Sunday. But again, please watch the schedule because I'm doing quite a few interviews, pre-recorded interviews this week. So the shows could be posted at any time. Also, yeah, Monday we did the Amanda Bayes re-air. Amanda, obviously being a South African as well, working a lot with SRA and survivors. That was a great show. As well as actually Friday or Saturday, the show with Holly Baglio and Chris Latera, just 2 Montauk survivors sharing their stories and similar experiences. So catch that on ARA as well. Great show. It's really nice to see these survivors getting together and just talking and sharing. Gosh, such a terrible time for everyone. But anyway, we do what we can. Yeah. Okay, so let's just talk about our Christmas giveaway quickly. Wow. This is such a fantastic giveaway, guys. Check it out. We have 3, our CRACKERMISS giveaway, no, CRACKERMISS Christmas. I always get these things wrong, but hey, I try. I have something stuck in my head and it's going to stay like that until I really, really, really dislodge it. But anyway, so we have 3 different hampers. 1 hamper for Australia, 1 hamper for South Africa, and 1 hamper for everything else that's international. Why we've done that is because in the hamper 1, check out the hampers. There's a book from Jesse, Faithful in All His House, That's by Jessie Zabota. Honeycomb Tales by Chanti and illustrated by Mornay. Personal aura reading by Beverli. So the stuff we've been doing now, right? And then a $50 website gift voucher again from Jessie. So any course or purchase you want to make from her website, you would get less $50. And then Rachel Vaughan, the Australian survivor who's doing so much to reveal stuff happening in Australia, she's made a special crystal necklace. So purely for postage, we're keeping that for Australia, right? So hamper 1 is Australia. Hamper 2 is South Africa, which is all of the above. But instead of the necklace, there's a 1,500 Rand voucher by marushka.com, which is handcrafted linen clothing. Absolutely gorgeous clothing. You guys might have seen me wear a lot of linen clothing, especially in summer. That's all her. She designs it herself. She creates it herself. It's Evo, slow, genuine, 100% authentic. It's beautiful. So check out her website as well, marushka.com, just to see what she has available there. And then, of course, hamper 3 is all of the above, but included is Caleb Jade's Book of Miracles. So, and that, of course, we can do because we can post that from wherever. And then, of course, also the reason why South Africa is that because Marushka will post the item in South Africa. So that is absolutely our Christmas giveaways. And let's talk about how you're actually going to enter. So how to enter is you subscribe to Ara and SOULutions. Okay, both of our channels. Sorry, I want to just make this smaller here so I can see properly. Sorry, my screen's just playing silly buggers with me. And then basically what you do is you comment CRACKERMISS 2025 and the country where you live on the giveaway. So then you'll just say Australia, South Africa, or any other country, right? So where the giveaway is going to go to. And then you get a bonus entries. You get 3 bonus entries for sharing and tagging us and our sponsors. And our sponsors are these amazing women and I'm going to pop them up now. And one of them is sitting right here with me. And that is Beverli. Here's our sponsors. Rachel Vaughan, Marushka, Beverli, Jessie, Chanti, and Mornay. So that is our Christmas hamper giveaway for you. And each of the hampers as well includes an aura reading from Beverli. And then, of course, for those of you who've not yet seen our beautiful gift, the Honeycomb Tales Adventures on the Ankara Field, that is available worldwide on Amazon, as well as in French. It is now available in French as well on Amazon. South Africans and Namibians, beautiful surprise for you. We have printed copies here. So any of you in South Africa or Namibia who would like to purchase a copy for Christmas for any child in your life or your inner child, it's available now. So super excited for that as well. Yay. And I think that is probably all my announcements for today. So CRACKERMISS Christmas 2025. I really, 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 please go and enter, share far and wide the joy. We try to just thank you in these ways for the support you give us over the years. So when we can get our amazing viewers and or shall I say, yes, you are our amazing viewers, when we get our amazing guests like this lady next to me, it's a great joy. Hello, beautiful Beverli. You've just arrived back from beautiful conference. How
Yes,
are you?
fantastic conference. Yes, was really good. Well, it was really quite something. The other presenters were fantastic. We were lucky enough to spend some breakfasts with everybody and met everyone, and they were absolutely amazing. So I was really lucky to meet some fantastic people from all over the world. It was great. It really was. And it was a great conference, and it was all filmed, and it was super, super, super.
I can't wait to hear all about it because I think there are going to be some phenomenal guests
There
that
were.
we could probably invite onto our show as well
I think so. I think so.
from that conference. So I
It's
think
a
it's just an
beautiful
amazing
woman.
time to be alive.
Oh, it's fantastic. A beautiful woman
Mm,
speaks to trees, is able to channel and get messages from them. There was a couple of amazing people that were working with the army, but then found out that they were on Mars. What? It's like, wow, it's incredible. And then there was a couple of super soldiers that were there that had been working with and had seen different Dracos and reptilians and doing wow. I mean, and then there's Dr. Amir, who is just he's like a specialist on dragons and on the mantis beings and things. I mean, it was really, for me to say, blow my mind. Those speakers were absolutely awesome. And I was lucky with our mutual friend
wow.
Danny Henderson. She was there. She opened up and introduced me on stage. So that was a fantastic bonus. Very, very honored for her to do that. So yeah, fantastic time.
It is fantastic, and you deserve every bit of exposure you get because, by
Oh,
gosh,
thank you.
you know, I don't know, I say this all the time, and I know I sound like a stuck record, but I really mean it each and every time I say it on a deeper level than what I did say at the time before. But I have such respect for you survivors, and I call you the overcomers because you've not just survived, but you've actually overcome so much that you can share your gift of healing with the world. You know, the reason why they were abusing you kids in the first place was for the very gifts that you
Yeah.
are sharing with us now. And it's
Yeah.
so beautiful that you are using these gifts for the light, for the work of divine creator, God, source, and actually showing them such a middle finger and saying, well, thank
Yeah.
you. Um, Thank you for the knowledge you've given me and the information because now I'm just turning it around. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of strength. And that doesn't mean that the kids who didn't survive didn't have courage or strength, because I want to make that very clear. They there have been so many millions of kids that have been tortured, abused, men and women, not just kids, men and women, animals,
Yes,
species,
true.
nature,
Mm,
by these creatures of the night, the Lucies, as I always call them, you
that's a
know,
good name for them.
and it takes a lot of courage to step forth and speak out against this corruption and debasement of
Mm.
humanity. So
And they
again,
don't
thank you.
like it.
It's
They
been
don't like it at all. They had caused a little
no.
bit of nonsense there. We had a couple of people that stopped some of it because it was going out live, and they'd stopped. They managed to infiltrate. They got into the equipment. They did all sorts of things to stop the lives going out. They're driving the poor producer absolutely mad, and all the equipment at the back you can see it was all up there, and all the lines were going. And then she said, no, he says, I think we can get it to work. We shut everything down, reboot everything, and started again. They were having a ball trying to stop everyone talking about what they needed to talk about, but they didn't win, which is great. I love it when a plan comes together, as they say. There we go.
Always, and it's always going to come together for us. It always does. Yeah, I just think there's too many people. There's too many of us pulling together now. And even though
No.
there's definitely some discord in the ranks, it's
Mm.
normal that there's going to be discord in the ranks, while everyone is realigning and finding our new feet and our new space in the world. It's normal that there is going to be some discord and turmoil. But as long as we all understand we're singing off the same song sheet, and
Exactly.
it's like a team. I see this as a team. I often say this as well. each one is playing a different position in the team. So we're
Exactly.
all pulling, all moving towards the same agenda, really, which is towards just harmony, peace, where we can create again and, use our divine wisdom where we're not under siege, and we can
Exactly.
create a beautiful world because that's what us human beings are. We are creative geniuses. We are creative masters. That's why they target us, is because they
Yes.
want our creative energy. And
Yeah.
the only way they can create
Exactly.
is
And they
through
do.
us. They don't exactly, they manifest through us. This is
Mm.
why they'll create so many psyops, because our
Mm.
emotions is the loosh that they feed off, which is what they don't have.
Yep.
So if whatever they want, and this is why, when you're looking at things like The Simpsons and you're
Yes.
seeing how many of the situations back then have now become true, you can see how they did it, because we know that this was used, they were using kids in like the Looking Glass Project,
Yes.
Voice of God, etc., to do these psychic programs. And then they were putting the most probable outcome in places like The Simpsons, because that's how people would go. I mean, let's say if they see Queen Elizabeth died in 2022, just with like, or whatever it was, flicking symbolism there, as we've seen, that then is millions of people looking at that saying Queen Elizabeth is dead in 2022. We create that. When they see Trump being elected into presidency, which is what the Simpsons have often predicted, we've created that because they show it to us on the screen and we go, wow, Trump for president, Trump for president, Trump for president. And no, nothing against Trump, guys, but I'm just saying that's the things that I've seen. So that's how we create what they want us to. And we must remember that we have that power, and we also have the power to withhold that loosh
Yes.
just by
Absolutely.
being neutral. Neutral is good, and then to work towards what you want. You just turn the current like that. That's how it's done.
Mm.
Not through, I don't know, whatever else.
Because we can manifest, and that
So,
was one of the big things that was part of the discussion, was how we are able to manifest so precisely exactly what it is we want and how we want it. And we are the one of the species that has not only free will, but we have the capability of being able to push out and manifest very, very strongly. And that was very obvious and
exactly.
absolutely brilliant. I did the Zen cards manifestation of the energies across the whole of the room in the beginning, and I said at the end I'll reveal to you which is the Zen card that's been permeating, going through and bouncing off the walls in Beverli Hall. And I said, just if you want to participate, great. Put your feet on the floor and just tune in, and then look at the Zen cards and decide in your own mind which one is it that is within the Beverli Hall. And it was the wavy lines. And at the end of it, I put it up on the screen and said, right, this is the reveal. This is the one that's been in the room all this time for the last 4 days. And they were like, wow, yeah, I got it. So it was a really cool event to have. It was nice.
Very nice. That's very cool. I look forward to hearing about it, and I look forward to having some of those guests on here.
Definitely, you've got to.
Yeah,
They're
that's for
amazing.
sure.
I was amazed. I sat there thinking,
Yeah,
wow.
that'll be cool. But anyway, I wish we could have tonight's elusive guest on, Jack the Ripper. I
Yes,
wish
it
he
would
could
be
be
good.
sitting here with us saying, dude, and we could, I was like, dude, what the hell?
What did you do? Oh, gee, that's the one
Anyway,
thing.
let
Even
me just,
this is the problem. All the suspects, as well as the person that is, there were 2 or 3 or 4 people that were suspects. And when I had a look at it and started tuning, and I thought, they're all long gone. They're way, way on the other side, deceased. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing I tuned into was some of the descendants of the victims. They're not all of them, but the majority of those that are related to them have been calling for like an investigation, a new investigation into all of the the clothing, and if they've got any active DNA samples that are still valid. But particularly the clothing samples, because they've still got that, a shawl, and they've got not a blanket, I think they've got a shawl, and they've got a piece of other fabric. So the families are, well, not the family, direct families, but the descendants of the families are saying, we would really like to understand whether or not our relative was a person of interest, or whether our relative was actually the perpetrator. And they can do that now through DNA. So that's also all being kicked off and started. And I mean, you are talking about 133 years ago. So it's a long time ago, but it would be nice. It's the first biggest cold case, and it was the very, very first true crime case ever. Wow.
I'm just going to go through for those that don't. I mean, I think everyone's heard of Jack the Ripper, but let me just give a little synopsis on Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper is the name given to an unidentified serial killer active in Whitechapel, London in 1888. Isn't that interesting with all those eights?
All the eights.
That for me, yeah, it would be something. And there's 18 people watching, so that's very interesting. Another 8 there.
Oh, another 8.
Which is very interesting. Victims. The canonical 5 victims widely linked to the case are Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Edoes, I think that's how you pronounce it, and Mary Jane Kelly, all women, mostly impoverished and working as casual sex workers. Murders occurred at the night in the East End. The killer attacked and mutilated victims, sometimes removing organs. Okay. The Metropolitan Police conducted one of the largest Victorian manhunts. The case generated intense media frenzy. Police techniques of the era were primitive but by modern standards. The press received taunting letters, notably from hell and dear boss letters. Authenticity of most letters remains disputed. Despite many suspects proposed over the years, doctors, butchers, local men, even royals in conspiracy theories, the murderer's identity was never proven. The case exposed social inequality, policing limits, and sensationalist journalism. It remains one of history's most famous unsolved murders. So, am I all blanking out again?
At the moment, yes. It's funny energies, I'm guessing. Come on, give it back. There we go. You got to command these things. Stop mucking around with the energies, mate. Come on, give it back.
Stop mucking around. Okay, it must be Jack and his little merry band of whatever they were. Okay, so let's see what you say. Do you want to should we just put up some pics first, or do you want to go straight to the
put up some background so that everyone knows what the background is, because I mean it hasn't been in the press for a long time.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think this is probably just kind of like pictures of generally that time. We can go into the gory details, but not really. I'd prefer not to, otherwise we might just get struck for that as well.
Yes,
but yeah, you guys can see that this is part of the unfortunate women.
Yeah, because it was all done in an area called Spitalfields, near Spitalfields Market, which is quite an interesting one. And they ended up being Whitechapel, but really that was all within the Spitalfields area.
So you can see all over London, the London Daily Post, Jack the Ripper claims 5th victim brutally. I mean, you can imagine how these people must have been freaking out, right? At the time. I don't know if there's anything else here, or
Yeah,
just
so the
these
list.
newspaper.
They did add. I see at the end there they added a few more proposed alleged victims, but then there was only those that became the canonicals, as you like. So there was a few that were all linked to one person, and then there were a few that weren't. So it was quite interesting. So while we've got the newspapers up, the one thing that I did pick up on, which was a very odd thing, is that that there was this boss letter. I don't know if you saw that in your research, but I saw there was a boss letter that was sent to the press during that time, and it was signed Jack the Ripper. And this is where the perpetrator got his name from. And that was very interesting because when I was digging a bit deeper, I found that there was a lot of discussion around this boss letter that was signed Jack the Ripper, because it came up that there was one of the management individuals had said, actually, this was just a ploy to send a fake letter to the newspaper so that they could get particularly the newspaper circulation, and also one of the pubs, the 10 Bells pub in Spitalfields, where the two of the main victims were at the time, that all of that was just to bring business in and to sell newspapers. So I thought that was very interesting after all this time, that somebody had come forward and said, look, this is what we know, that this letter to the boss of the newspaper was actually a fake letter just to drum up business, trying to get those hooks out there. And that's why the newspapers were putting all different types of victims, adding extra victims in all the time. And, there's a couple of, like the unknown victims that was found later, the one that was found on the 10th of September, 1889. And then later on, the Francis Coles, which was in 1891. They were trying to link all of these to keep that circulation going, because this particular issue sold newspapers like hotcakes. And it created this whole assumed issue about this urban legend of this so-called person that had very, very aptly been named by the newspaper. Not by himself, but by the newspaper. Yeah, weird.
Wow. So what is your take on that? What is your take on that?
Well, I had a good look at it, and I did some further scratching around, and I did look at some of the newspapers that might be the newspapers that could have been suffering from a downward trend. Suddenly, one or two of the newspapers, very suddenly after this Jack the Ripper, East End, Whitechapel, Spitalfields, when that became published, very suddenly this became the go-to story to see what was happening, who was next, what were the areas, what areas to stay away from, etc. And there is, I think, when I looked at that energy, I thought, yeah, this would be an equivalent of today's sort of digital hooks, or what do they call it, where you have clickbait and things like that. That's exactly what that is. So, and the fact was that the newspapers gave the person undertaking all these horrendous crimes, they were the ones that gave him the name. That was never a name that was given by the person who was undertaking those crimes. So I think that that's true, actually. I think that the newspapers created a situation with a name. They just saw that there were possibility of a few linked as possible so-called serial events, and they jumped on the bandwagon. Somebody very cleverly saw a great opportunity and jumped on it. So yes, I think that that's true.
I tend to agree with you on that, I have to say. I definitely tend to agree with you on that. Okay, here's another one. I'm not sure what that's about.
It's probably one of the artists at the time. Yeah, it's more pushing the loose, pushing the fear.
More 1800 fear porn.
Police news, police illustrated news from the law courts and the Weekly Record. Wow. There we go.
You can just see with all of this I mean, imagine being back in the 1800s. Okay, I don't have a memory of that, but I can just imagine from what I've seen what that must be like. And you can imagine how up in arms everyone must have been by this molester walking the streets at night. And of course, I mean, the prostitutes have no recourse, do they? They just got to
No.
take it because it's always them, right? Wow, always the prostitutes who get it from these bloody perverts. Well, not always, a lot of the time. There's more, again, just more. And all of that, look at that. And they've created this image of him. Look at that, just that image, right?
And also £500 in those days, in 1888, £500 was a small fortune. To be offering, the mayor offered a £500 reward to any information leading to the conviction and the arrest of the individual. That's a lot of money.
Well, for me, there's one of two things going on there then. Either this guy had super demonic powers and he could shapeshift from one body into another, okay? Or he was highly protected. I mean, he was highly protected by somebody. How does someone like that just disappear when all the cops in London are after you? They're catching everyone else, but not him, right? So let's think logically. I like to bring logic into the equation. Um, Either he's, from what we know now, it's not far-fetched that he could be some demonic entity that arrived whenever the moon was full or something like that, right? Or he was protected, which would probably be the latter. But let's see. So yes, yeah, there's just a couple of pictures of the time. Okay. Now let's see this. We have the two aura pictures. I don't know if you want this one on first, Bev, or
Yeah,
that
that's
one.
the first one. No, that one is the one that we'll get to second. So this one here is when I started tuning into this individual. The first thing that I felt about him was his energy around his head. When you see the top of his head there, you've got these spikes that I saw coming out of his head that were very specific spikes, which I do see sometimes when an individual, and I used to do a lot of work with different facilities, and then we would have a look at the clinical record and look at then what the aura says. And the two do tie in. And this particular person has got a very strong orange-brown energy coming out of the head, and they're in spikes. And it looks a little bit, I must say, like a sea urchin or a hedgehog. And that's the best way probably to describe it, is that it does look like it's a very odd type of energy. And this is not of an energy from somebody who is completely stable. This is somebody who has got either multiple personality disorder, or has got some form of mental health issues, or has got some form of maybe schizophrenia, or perhaps some sort of psychotic aspects to it. And these are all very similar. And they also have, I've got him with enlarged hands, which was a very unusual thing to see in the aura that ties into the physical, because part of that enlargement in the hands, and having very smooth hands as well, was the dark energies of these entities, or these serpent type energies coming out of the hands all the way up to the shoulders. And that means that this individual was driven, almost driven to the point of insanity, where he was driven to undertake what he was doing. And he was pushed to take up a weapon. He was pushed to find somebody to be able to take a life. And this is part of something that he was not able to get away from. And I'll draw your attention back to the bottom, which is where the feet are, and that he was not able to run away. He was not able to move forward. and he was not able to move his life into such a position that he was, that he was able to lead a normal life. So this tells me that there is, and because it is so bright red and it's very dark, and there's a lot of gaps, and all of the auric areas are not really too well structured. As you can see, there's areas that are missing, there's holes, there's gaps, there's tears. But then we also see in the basal chakra at the bottom, we see this dark black goo running down towards the ground that's coming out of the basal chakra and going towards the base of the earth. So he's not able to get away from this. He's not able to control it. Plus also mentally, he doesn't have a full command of himself as a person. So it's almost like he has two personalities in there, both residing in the same body. This for me tells me that this is a major possession, and that this person has had this very heavy dark possession for quite a long period of time. And this might have been, when you have a look at the head at the top, there's that circular area around the top of the head, and that tells us that he has been infiltrated mentally, totally infiltrated, because he does not have control over his mental capacity, and he does not have a way in which he can change what he's doing or become a better person. So this is why there is this very dark red, very difficult type of environment around his head, because he actually doesn't know which side is up. Sometimes he manages occasionally to appear normal. I've got him dressed in the cloak of the time, so the 1888 type of dress, but he's not really able to show himself as a normal human being. He's not able to, he's quiet. He's not able to be the person that can easily hold a conversation. He does shy away from those types of conversations. The other thing that I did see with him is on his left leg and his left knee. You can see that those bones and those areas have been squashed in, and that shows an issue with the feminine side of himself, but also more importantly that he has a very big issue with the mother figure. That is very clear around the two bones areas, which is at the bottom of the picture, showing that he has that inability to connect directly with the mother figure or connect directly with women. So it is possible that this particular person would have had an issue with the sexual act, or an issue with being able to do much about the sexual act, because I don't think he really knew what to do. This is a type of person that would find it very difficult to manage in female company, and also very difficult to be able to get past, being his own person at home or in his home environment. It was very hard for him to step out of that. Again, it's where the red is. Then you've got it on the outer rims. You've got all these other red dots and these other orbs that are coming in, which is these words coming in. Try this, try that. It's a very, very difficult mental health issue. He also has, around the inner areas, there's a lot of that extra light. So I think he came from that as a young lad, but I think that was rapidly absorbed. What do you think about this, Chanti?
Wow. Very, very interesting. Well, the very first thing that comes through for me is the word possession dump. So he's possessed by lots of things. There was not just one entity working through him. I'm picking up several that were working through him. He had I think what we would call in today's age maybe split personality or alters or something like that, where he would go into different characters or alters. Yes. Um, I keep being drawn to the top of his head, where I totally agree with what you're saying in terms of those thoughts. But I'm looking beyond that to say that this person was highly intellectual. He was actually brilliant intellectually. He had nothing in the bottom of his body, absolutely, when it came to emotions or compassion or like anything godly, right? He had the ability to speak, be very clever, and I want to say wears a crown. So not necessarily himself wearing a crown, but I want to say this person would have been coming from some kind of a high standing family, a family who had definitely upper standing in the community. So most definitely, and I think that's where I'm thinking what I was saying earlier, he was protected. But obviously, I think that he was hidden. He spent a lot of time hidden. And I totally agree with you when you talk about the mother figure, because I think he was abused, definitely. But mom had a lot to do with that abuse as well, and abandonment and neglect. So this person to me is a secret, like almost a secret child, or gets kept somewhere that's not in the public eye, because I do feel that this comes, I almost want to say royalty, but that's almost too cliche. I don't want to say it is royalty or he was royalty, but probably protected by royalty, because I also feel like he wasn't just doing that with a woman. I feel like some of the altars that he had, he was being used for other stuff as well, like an assassin for other stuff as well. Definitely. This wasn't the only thing he was doing. And I do want to say almost he had the ability to operate in other realms. But I'm not saying that he was operating in other realms, but there's so much other realm energy coming in, and that he would go into different personalities. I feel like a crying child is one of them as well. I feel like this person sat a lot crying, weeping, like regretting what he'd done, because I feel like almost like, when you're looking, when you look at the acts of his depravity of literally taking out their innards, for me it's like, what are you searching for? What are you looking for in the woman? What are you looking for within the feminine? So I've got to take it back to the spiritual as well, not just the physical, because there's something in that spirit or that entity or that non-entity, right, that was clearly looking for something. There
I
were
agree.
so much pain relating to women and the feminine, that there was such a split personality, almost like adoring the feminine at the same time, but at the same time hating it so much, right? That you want to destroy it, but you have to take out all her innards to try and see what she is on the inside. Do you see what I'm saying
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. And also, remember, we there's Queen Victoria's grandson was on the list of possible suspects, and then you had Aaron Komeninsky, who was the Polish immigrant that was also on the list. And then, strangely enough, you had that cricketer W.G. Grace. And then, strangely, you had Queen Victoria's own physician, which I thought that was very interesting because as a physician, he had tremendous anatomical knowledge, and also he was known to be able to practice surgery at some point, but he was her physician. So when you look at it, you think, well, if there was somebody that had that ability, the knowledge of the body, the human body, he would be able to, exercise that level of clinical knowledge quite easily. So there's those few that were, I think, the top suspects at the time. It's only about 4 people. That one with this Aaron Komeninsky, they managed to find DNA on one of the shawls that matches one of his descendants. And that particular shawl had some of his DNA attached to it using today's new DNA sampling techniques. And that was, I think that was last week, they came forward with the full paper where they were publishing all of their findings. And what was very interesting is that although the research was undertaken with a DNA lab, etc., the unfortunate aspect was that the 2 gentlemen that undertook the research on the DNA that was on the shawl, they did not peer review their claims, so it didn't undergo the level of methodology and scrutiny that's required for a scientific paper. And I had a look at their paper, and it is very, very detailed. And it showed not just epithelials, but it also showed specific types of DNA that does survive through the years. And they were able then to use the relatives of this Aaron Komeninsky. They got the relatives' DNA and they matched the DNA. But the problem that the 2 individuals that did all this research, the problem that they have is that their methods, the methodology and the scientific background, they were not peer reviewed. So people couldn't actually go in and say, yes, they did this the right way. Yes, the samples were all pure, etc. So that's the biggest flaw. And that, unfortunately, I think that is going to cause an issue with individuals being able to say, yes, this is the perpetrator, or no, that's not, because it was not undertaken in a scientific environment. And that's the big flaw we've got there.
I don't think it's him at all. If there's DNA on her shawl, it's probably because he had been with her earlier that day or that night, and they probably were. I don't see that person. The Komeninsky person.
I didn't see this Aaron Kosminski as well, because when I was tuning into the Aaron person, he was, yes, a very quiet sort of person, very introspective. I think also the language barrier, because he was a Polish immigrant, I think he had a language barrier. It made him even quieter and more introverted. But I don't think he was able to do as much as possibly this physician, the Queen Victoria's physician. I think that he has more of the understanding of anatomy than the others.
I think the Aaron character, yeah, I think he was definitely a little bit of a pervert, and had a darker side to him, and definitely would have frequented the ladies of the night, and maybe, I don't know, had some weird fetishes that they were satisfying. But I don't see him as crossing that line at all. I'm for sure going with a physician. That was like ding, because the person, it kept coming through to me, this person is medical. And what's coming through for me as well is that the fact what's so clear is that he was not just used. Okay, I'm going to say used because I'm speaking in this today's language about how these creatures are used. But yes, that was one of the things he did. I'd be very interested to see at the time, at the same roundabout time that the Queen's physician and Jack the Ripper were kind of hanging out in alternative timelines, how many people in hospitals would have died, or people in his care unexpectedly, or something like that? Because to me, he was used as an assassin.
Yeah.
So, as a medical doctor, and if you are the Queen's medical doctor, then you have access to all sorts of things. And you know how that easy it is for them to use doctors to do the things that they want them to do. I'm saying the Queen's physician. I'm saying that for me feels the most resonant.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not saying
agree
it
that this.
is. I've always can be wrong, but
Yeah, I'm also looking at some of my notes because I think that there was part of the background is showing that there's almost like a wave of individuals that were pushed into the limelight, and people were grassing up or telling tales on individuals because they were just so keen to try to find who it is that's doing this, that other people were being put into the mix. And this person, this W.E. Grace, the cricketer, was also thrown into the mix, and there was a lot of questioning around, could it have been him? But then he does not have any medical background at all. So, and if someone doesn't have a medical background, you won't be able to affect those levels of cutting and suturing or whatever it was, and also removal. It was done with a level of precision. So all of the little evidence and the different, the breadcrumb trail, so to speak, seems to all point to the person that is the physician, more so than a person that was just a general run-of-the-mill member of the public, because the member of the public would not understand anatomy like that. They wouldn't.
And especially not in that day and age. And Whitehall Bonnie, that was actually my first thought as it was a werewolf. I would not be surprised if he was as well, because when I first saw that, there was a whole lot of things tumbling into my consciousness. And werewolf was one of them, but like assassin. And I know in this day and age, they will often use the werewolves in the system as the assassins, right?
Yes, they do.
The protectors. So I don't think it was as advanced then, but he was clearly under the control of so many negative entities that I would not be surprised, because definitely he wore this facade, and brilliant. And that's kind of the only way he could speak to people, is through his intellectual brilliance of, let's say, being a doctor and a surgeon. And he was this, people were nervous to approach him, the lowly people type thing. So he was unapproachable by many except the intellectual few with which he could convene in that space. So he kept himself aloof, so that he wouldn't have to be, obviously he was highly antisocial, but in his career as a doctor, he probably was a brilliant doctor, right? So, but then by night, the werewolf, and still, I'm going to say, it within the hospital, he would have been trying this stuff as well. Like, I think on women, like, I don't know, women, like hurting women, or especially doing experiments that were necessary, or going to, like, stuff like that. It definitely came through.
Yeah,
in his practice as well.
Yeah,
so
it's
used
very
maybe
clear.
Yeah.
I kept getting which was a bit strange, I kept getting things like hair cutting and hair fragments, and somebody speaking in a totally different language. I kept getting that as well.
Yes.
it was a bit of a strange one. I kept hearing this, almost not a, it could have been chanting. I think it could have been chanting, but there was this constant chant, this constant words and unusual language that was being utilized. So whether that was something that was part of an SRA or part of something different, but I also got that this person, just like you had said, that there was something untoward, something unusual happening. But it's not just one or two or five or six or seven women. And this is the energy when I started tuning in to the overall being. It's all these women energies and all these pictures of people, these lovely ladies. And although they're shown in our current century format, these are people that would have been women that would have been around at that time. And these are the energies, and the energetics are still stuck with this person. Now, I will say that the Jack the Ripper person, the entity themselves, is obviously since passed. The good thing is that when I was looking at the entity, that because of the level of atrocities that were undertaken by that person does want to release all of these aspects, and he does want some level of peace. So I think certainly maybe this year still there will be a call to action at some point to either reopen the investigation, or possibly based on the fact that there was the scar, there's the shawl with some level of mitochondrial DNA on the shawl. Maybe somewhere along the line there could be a benefactor that will say, well, actually, let's use modern techniques with DNA and let's see what we can find and somehow get to the bottom of it. Because I think the Jack the Ripper person, is actually pushing from spirit to have his identity made known so that he can move on and decide what he wants to do with all those that he'd ended.
And isn't it interesting there when you show, where all the pictures of the women are around him? Because that's what I was like saying earlier on, is like it wasn't just those women. There was so many more. It's like he was an assassin. He was an assassin, man. And he did it in different bodies or in different realms. Like, it's such a weird... I'm just happy that I've been able to understand how these creatures work in the last few years, because, and I still obviously am just touching the surface. But most definitely I see him. And if you look at those black, like coming down from the last chakra, there's like, it's like a black oil leak. It's like goo. Black goo. Yes, there's just a possession dump. I feel like that person carried the karma for his entire family, and I don't know. It's like all the shitty karma went into that person, and I don't know why he chose to do that, because ultimately, on a spiritual level, we do choose our experiences, and I don't know why. I don't know why. I can't see that. But there was a time he was happy. Most definitely.
So.
Yeah. If I go right back to, I pick up 6 years old, and I almost feel like he could have had a little sister. There's a little female, either a sister or a cousin, a sibling, friend maybe. He's not an only child, no. But I wouldn't be surprised if he loses this little girl. There's definitely some loss of a feminine when he's small. So either a friendship, or maybe she died, or I don't know, they moved, or it felt like death, something like that. But she was taken away in some way or the other, and it left a wound in him. That's where it began. There was a time when this child was happy. He was a happy child. So yeah, I'm going to back up what you're saying, like right in the beginning. There was light. There is light.
Yeah, there was, and I think that's where his problem. That's where his problem comes in. And the other thing I picked up, which was super weird, is that he was actually, I think he was either trying to become a Freemason or he was already a Freemason. So that was a very interesting background story, is that if they are, I really just hope that somebody somewhere will come forward and say, well, you know what, let's take all the latest DNA, whatever's in the old files, and let's revisit it and see what we can find out. Because I do think that there's enough evidence there for today's new technology to find out more about the person and to maybe, get the two to be matched. I do think that the police files do have some information about the real killer. They need to go back and start looking at it because it's one of the most notorious ancient cold cases across the world. It is one of the longest serving, 133 years worth of cold cases. But I do think that if you had a look at it and then put everything through the latest information and technology that we have at our disposal, I think there will be a lot of new information that will now make sense. We're just not seeing it. So, but he is definitely a Freemason. He's either applied to become a Freemason, and he needed two good men to stand up for him and stand behind him and say, yes, he's a good man, he can go forward, or he is already a Freemason during that time.
Yeah, I think he's already one. He's walking the process. He's walking the steps of that. It's almost like, it's almost like, but the further he gets, the greater his bloodlust becomes.
Yes.
Because we all know even when they're initiating kids, I mean, they make kids do the most horrific things, right?
They do.
Kids have got to sacrifice and what have you. They get that bloodlust in kids going very, very quickly, and especially if a child has a propensity to be that way. And some boys do, especially if they're warriors, right? Or if they come from a warrior type bloodline, they would tend to go for that. But that doesn't mean they would ordinarily if they were not tampered with, right?
True.
So I do feel this guy, the more he did it, the more lusty it became. I feel like he was clever. That's the thing. So he was like seen early on, and he liked to study, and he liked to talk, and he liked to philosophize, and he had great ideas, and a learned man, and speaking to people on top levels. Definitely. This is not just some ordinary jackass.
No, it's not. And I
don't know where the word
jackass came from.
I never ever say that word. I never ever say the word jackass, but it just came through to me now. This is no ordinary jackass. So
it's an interesting one. It's a very different one, and I think that once all of the DNA samples and the information, and then once it's run through latest technology and it's been done scientifically, and it's not, that it's been, it adheres to whatever the methodologies are that you have to adhere to, because clearly the first review that they did of this, it wasn't done according to whatever, the status has to be done to prove scientifically. So I think if they rerun all of those tests and do it in a scientific way, I think that there will be absolute proof as to who is the Jack the Ripper entity. But I will be very surprised if they don't come back and say, this is the person, but actually that person did not write the boss letter to the newspaper. That actually that there'll be no proof or evidence of in his hand writing that letter, because that letter was created totally separately to make a big thing out of it so that they sold papers.
Yeah, for sure.
Two separate things happening here.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. Wow, how interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit different.
But
Very, very different.
I yeah, I also actually agree that soul is choosing not retribution, to sort of come out of the
Forgiveness really
dark.
is what I got. He's
Mm.
desperate
Yeah.
because you've got a lot of you've got huge tour guides and tours, and in the sales of tickets for these activities to go to all of those places, particularly what is it, the Nine Bells, I think, was the 10 Bells. Yeah, 10 Bells pub in Spitalfield, where two of the victims used to work and pick up their clients. They're getting huge money from those tours.
Wow. Of course they are. It's something that actually serves them, doesn't it? For them to
Yeah, exactly.
make money on.
And it's the
Wow.
very first true crime cold case ever worldwide that's this big. And it's caught the imagination, literally, of the whole world.
Why do you think it's been perpetuated for so long? Because obviously they've kept this story alive, right? For decades, centuries, basically. So why do you think they have kept the story alive so much? Because they didn't have to keep it alive, right?
No,
They
but
they
look
never
at
have.
yeah, but look at the bottom line here. Where is the loosh going? Who is actually getting
Right.
fat and happy from scoffing up all of the energies? You've got the pubs, you've got Spitalfields, you've got tour organizers, you've got tour guides that have learned it and can make their money, and all of that is like greed. It's money, 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 and it's that loosh. Once again, we come back to the loosh. Individuals will pay to go and look at this because they want to see, they want to feel what was it like in that area, what was the crime like, what did the pub look like, what did the streets look like, all these sort of things. So the bottom line here is there's a lot of people whose livelihoods depend on this, but there's also individuals that are happy to pay to be scared out of their wits, or to feel. Why do people like going to ghostly haunts or going on ghost tours that with the possibility of a ghost popping out of a cupboard from somewhere? All of that is the loosh. Once again, is them feeding on the loosh. And we know that this person, just by those snaky things coming out and the snaky things from his feet, we know that he was unbelievably demonic. And we knew that he was possessed at a rate that hasn't been seen for some time. So there in itself, that's your bottom line, is you're still feeding the demons, you're still feeding whatever it was that he was feeding at that time.
Well, isn't it interesting how we humans have such a taste for the macabre? How many people will go and visit these or partake in these Jack the Ripper tours.
Yeah.
And that's just one of them.
Exactly.
Isn't it amazing how we have... Look, I can't say it's only that, because there's many amazing people that tend to want to go to nice areas and see the daisies and things like that as well, right? To go to nature and game parks and stuff like that. But there's such a large percentage of humanity that loves to feed off the macabre. I mean, why would you want to go and listen to how a man hacked 5 women to death and sliced them up in great detail? What part of you wants to hear that, and why? I think this is a good thing for us, Beverli, is to actually start questioning ourselves. Those of us who enjoy these things, thank God I don't, but I was never allowed to watch horror movies or anything as a kid.
Yes.
My parents, so I'm very grateful for that. I've got to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for that. So but it's like there's such a large genre out there of this stuff, and people feed off it. And it's
Yeah.
like the more people feed off it, the more they're bringing it in. And this to me was the beginning. As I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this picture speaking to you, I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Like, why have they carried on this story so long? Because all of these, like when that body dies, obviously the entities don't die. They then merely get then fed through the ancestral bloodline if it
Yes.
has not been healed, right? So
Mm.
let's talk about that then, because these entities are not dead. The body is dead, right? But the entities that were feeding off this person and using him as a host are not dead. They've merely channeled themselves now like disgusting, slithering snakes that have had eggs being hatched over centuries now in other. That's really what I'm seeing here.
Mm.
This was the
Mm.
beginning of that loosh harvesting, the whole
Yes.
sexual, macabre, slaughter, violence against women. That, and as you say, the most notorious case in history, unsolved. So it keeps you up there. There are thousands of other cold cases that could
Mm.
also be up there, that where old men are killed, or whatever the case might be, right? We can make them
Mm.
also um, an icon. But this guy, and this for me, there's a thread, because the entities that were feeding off this guy are still active. They're feeding through lots of other energies now, though.
Yeah.
They've split like
Mm.
snakes hatching and making more babies and making more babies. That's what's happened here.
Yeah,
This, and that's what
absolutely. Mm.
alive. That is so disgusting. I mean, I've just got chills all the way down my spine, because that's what it is. That's why they keep this narrative alive. Through this narrative, they continue. And I'm going to say, I want to know how many people that have been on these tours, these Jack the Ripper tours and stuff like that, have had shit experiences after that, like
Mm.
nightmares or bad things happen. I'm telling you that now. Oh my
Mm.
gosh, people have got to stop that. This is the problem. And as we look in, like at all the women's faces around him, it's like their stories have created a portal for this energy to go through. That trauma has created a portal. They created a portal, a trauma portal,
Mm.
for
Mm.
these energies to operate through. So it's like when you're looking, how many how have serial killers not multiplied since then, right? Think about
Mm.
that. And it's almost like this is the portal through which they operate.
Yeah, in a way. And that was interesting because when I was researching it through, I've utilized, there's one particular place that I utilize for all the cases that I'm working on. And what I get is there's a huge super portal that's got all the cases and has all of the information. So it has all of the suspects. In this case, it was 500 suspects. Out of 500 suspects, there was 2 or 3 doctors. There was Dr. T. Neil Cream. There was also, of course, Prince Albert Victor, who is the grandson. And then there was Dr. Pedachenko. And then there was the later one, the last one was Dr. John Williams. And when you start looking at where these particular doctors were working and what level of anatomy they had studied, they probably are the top ones. And then you have the barber, which is the guy that seems to be coming up mostly in the DNA, this Aaron Komeninsky. He was also part and parcel of that. But then out of that, I did look, and there's pictures of each of these people. There are all of those are on the in the case files, and I was very pleased to see that there was such a large case file about these individuals. There's some that they don't have pictures of them, but by and large, more than half have got actual photographs of individuals, including, which is strangely enough, the Royal Conspiracy. They've got the 3 people about the royals that they thought it could have been, because the person always disappeared close to Buckingham Palace. So at the end of the day, you sort of look at this and you think, well, how many of those people were actually able to come forward, and how many of those were experts? How many of them would have been able to dismember a body to that level, with that level of accuracy? And one of the other things that came forward was that the person could have also been a butcher. So there could have been someone that was working at Spitalfields Market that knew how to dismember animals. So be a very good butcher and have very, very good knife skills and quick knife skills to be able to not only dispatch the animal, but also get that animal cut up into pieces so that you got your pork chops and your lamb chops and whatever else you need. So there was all of that as possibly as part of the background as well. So there's in the case book as such, there's a lot of and there's also a separate forum that talks about the timeline, different authors that have got different reveals about them, dissertations, and it's also got a full overview of all the different police officials that worked on the case. And the reason why also I said about the letter to the press, and they called this the Autumn of Terror, which was all the hundreds of letters that were sent to the police. Because remember, in those days, that's the only way that you had to be able to send letters, where people were saying, this is the person that is the Ripper, this is what I've seen, etc., etc. But a lot of those letters, some of them were genuine and some of them were fake. But nobody's really gone back to see what was driving those individuals. And the Dear Boss letter, which is the keen one, and that is that was received in September in 1888 by the CNA, so Central News Agency, and that was after 3 days later there was that double murder, which was Miss Stride and Miss Eddowes, and they then had to reconsider what had been found. But nobody, when they published it, because they actually published the letter, they reproduced the whole letter as it was, hoping that someone would recognize the handwriting. But then there was another letter that came. There was a postcard that came written in the same hand that also said, Dear Boss. And they had said there that nobody could say for sure whether it was a hoax, but generally, in my experience in working with criminals and working with individuals that are either on death row or working with those that have been accused successfully and proven to be guilty, generally, if they are going to write any letters, which is unusual, they'll only write one. They wouldn't write a follow-up one, which was immediately when I saw, there was a letter, Dear Boss, and then a postcard, Dear Boss. How convenient. So for me, that smacks not just from my own RV abilities, but most definitely from experience gathered over 40 years. Most of the criminals will not follow it up with a second opportunity for fear of being caught. So that's quite and it was a very saucy type of postcard that was given. It's very similar to the original letter, but also they make direct references in the letter to the murders that had happened that previous night. So I don't believe that it's necessarily a genuine one. And also the one thing that it does say is that Eddowes' ear, one of the lady's ears, was taken away, and they're saying that it was not mailed to the police. So the most important thing with that postcard is that it says about that there's the double murder, and that any person wanting to write a hoax postcard or letter, they would have been able to read what is happening with the press, and they could have found there was nothing in any of those letters that would suggest that that person was written. It was written by the person, because they never said anything in any of that information at all that wasn't already published in the press.
Exactly. So you don't really know. Interesting. Yeah, Ursa is just saying that that the dear boss letter came with
A
a
piece
piece
of Edo's
of
liver.
Edo's liver, one of the victims. Yeah, one of the victims. Wow, how interesting. Well, I think that in time, everything comes to light.
Yeah.
The
And I
truth,
think with Three Eye
the
Atlas,
truth.
all the energy now, the energy that Three Eye Atlas and the other comets and meteors are pushing out, that energy is coming down and all the truth will start coming out. And that's the same with the Andrew debacle that's happening now. There's going to be lots more truth that's going to come out over the next few weeks and certainly into January. He's going to be in the press a lot over the next 4, 5, 6 weeks. And there's going to be a lot of rubbish that's going to be coming up. You know what they say? Poop floats. And that's what's going to happen with him. And then we've got, of course, the boiled egg penis man. He's going to be coming up as well. I know it's terrible to think about, but all of this, the light is coming in, and all of this is going to be coming into the public domain. So we will certainly know a lot more. But I mean, Andy, watch out. It's going to hit the fan.
But isn't it interesting, though, that if we're looking at Jack the Ripper, who was protected by the royals, either way, that little Randy Andy and his little shenanigans are starting to pop up to the surface now as well. I mean, obviously, stuff like that. I mean, we know anyone who knows how energy works, okay? That's a given that when obviously he dies from old age or that energy can never be created or destroyed, only ever transformed or transferred. So that energy is transferred to someone from his ancestral bloodline.
Yeah. Lots of fun. It's going to be fun to see. I can't wait to see personally. I'm just when I see him, I just have to giggle because I know too much on the back end. I know things that I cannot say, and that there were things I've already said. I was like, okay, yeah, no. This is when the Epstein person said the one person that was even more weird than he was that one. So Andy, there's a lot that's still going to come out about him that people are going to be shocked about. And he's not going to be able to get away with it. He's not going to be able to say, oh, no, that's not me, that's not me. Too much evidence now. As they say, sorry for you, not sorry for you.
Yeah. For real is saying, Bev, rotten eggs also float. Yeah, they do. And they sure as heck do.
Yeah, good. So, this is it. Rotten egg, indeed.
I thought eiers gaan nou boontoe skuif. Ons gaan sien.
Yeah, we will. Oh, I think it's going to be great. So I think, and remember I said a few weeks ago when we did that review on the aura of him and everyone else, and I said within the next few weeks there's lots of trouble that's going to be coming out, and there's going to be a whole bunch of other things that are going to come into the surface and be shown. I guarantee, I reckon before Christmas he's going to be shamed again. International press is going to be completely shamed. Here we go again. Hold on to your horses, guys. This is going to get messy.
Yeah, I think it's still going to get a little bit more messy before we start noticing the cleanup. Yeah. It's a little bit more. Who are we kidding? I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Over the next five years or so, I think we're in for the high jump. But I think it's more about humanity waking up to the truth of what's been going down. I mean, sometimes I want to get so mad with some people for being so ignorant. But at the same time, there's something so endearing about people's innocence, because my circle of friends mostly have no idea that this shit even exists, the stuff we're talking about. They can't hear it. It's like, what do you mean? So there's something endearing about that innocence, because you actually can't imagine that somebody can do something so god awful, right? But then at the end of the day, when we all just take a step or slow down, we have to realize that we've been ignoring the obvious all the time.
Exactly.
And that's not actually an innocence, that's ignorance. So when does innocence become ignorance? And we've got to really, that might be a good show to do, actually. When does innocence become ignorance? Because the innocence of, what do you mean? And suddenly seeing stuff like this, hearing stuff like this, hearing the testimonies of survivors and their horrific stories, and someone's going, no, man, that's like, no, you need to go and put your tinfoil hat on. No, I can't be hanging out with you. You can't be telling stories like this at my dinner parties anymore, or whatever. Or, sure.
But the perpetrators, having had a lot to do with them, the perpetrators actually, we do know that we've survived and we've managed to move forward. But they, as perpetrators, they never see you as real people. That's one thing I've learned, is they never ever see you as a living being. They never see you as a being that has a soul. They never see you as anything more than the object of their passion, their affection, their lustful needs. That's all they see you for, is this is the person that I've chosen. This is the person that's going to be the person that I'm going to do what I need to do. And actually, most of the time, I've realized that they don't even realize what your face is like. They don't see it. They don't see it at all. It's like this blank nothing.
It's like that compassion gene, that empathy gene. And that's what we talk about so much. And that's why they would start the torture and the abuse at such a young age, because they have to get rid of the empathy and the compassion, because that's one thing us human beings have. We have compassion. We have empathy. That's our strength, actually. That's true power, kindness, compassion, empathy. And that's the stuff, obviously, that has to be eradicated, because a compassionate person could never sacrifice a child or an animal.
Absolutely.
Or they've got to be completely out of their mind. And a lot of the time when the kids are made to do this, they're on drugs. They put the kids on drugs,
Engage the reptilian mind.
Yeah. So crazy. Anyway.
But I think a lot more is going to come to light, and we're going to see lots more truth and light coming out, because now we're on a roll, and we've got 17 more meteors and celestial bodies and comets and all these great things, not only injecting energy into the sun so that it can beam down onto us and very carefully filter us with the energy, but we've got that coming very close and very close to the earth as well in the future. So we're in the perfect position for the next 2 years. That energy is going to be filtering down onto the earth, and we can really, really move forward very fast if we pull that energy onto ourselves. We've got 2 years to get to the point where we move from carbon-based bodies into celestial crystalline bodies.
Well, hey, I'm doing enough yoga, because I'm definitely moving into that crystalline body. That's for sure.
Good.
Okay, guys and girls. Thank you all so much for joining Bev and myself. Really enjoy these fascinating conversations. And don't forget to enter our CRACKERMISS Christmas giveaway. Like, share, subscribe. Get everyone on the bandwagon. Everyone deserves a great Christmas. And there's a whole hamper full, and you are welcome to share. If you receive a hamper and not everything in it is for you, you are welcome to pass it on to somebody else. That is also part of the gift. You don't have to take everything for yourself. You can pass it on to friends, family, whatever. But if you Yes.
I think it's a good idea. I think I'm going to give you an aura graph reading of your aura with all the little bits and bobs that I've been seeing over this last year. I'm going to give you that for Christmas. How's that for a nice Christmas present?
Yay! I'm getting it all. That is so awesome, Beverly. Thank you. I will receive that with a glad and grateful heart. Thank you. I
Good.
actually look forward to that. That'll be super cool.
It's going to be a
And
good
there's going to
one.
be, yeah, Beverly is putting out 3 more in the hampers. So, guys, yes, like, share, subscribe, comment, do whatever we need to keep our algorithms up. And yes, Lisa D. Lisa's going to get more reading. And yeah, share and let's keep walking this amazing path together. This is the path of healing. This is the path of taking responsibility because that's really what we have to do for our own path, where we're at. No matter what has happened, no matter where we've been, this is our responsibility to move forward and do so with an open heart, a loving heart, a forgiving heart. Forgiveness, a topic, yes, but let's rather talk about an understanding heart because an understanding heart creates automatically forgiveness. Forgiveness is the next step after understanding. Bev, thank you so much. Anything you want to say in closing?
Yes,
Where you
I'm
at?
gonna
I know you've just
yeah, we've
you've
just
just
got back.
there's yeah. So is there anywhere that everyone can check you out? Where can everyone find you?
I think I'm opening my diary again on the from the 19th because I need a couple of days to unpack the cases that are still there and get everything everything sorted and check what needs to be done. But yeah, I'll be opening the diary again from the 19th of December, and I'm working all over Christmas. So if you want to give a Christmas present, let me know. You can buy it from me and then tell me who it is that you're nominating for the Christmas present, because I have actually recently printed out one of the autographs on I think it's it's actually an A3. It's quite a big one. Looks quite nice, printed out as a canvas. And we can put the person's name at the bottom, and then you can explain all the writings and narrative that goes with it. So if you're stuck for Christmas presents, that's a very good idea. Thanks,
What a
Chanti.
beautiful gift. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. And for real, thank you. I love that once again. And my favorite soul collective. I agree.
Oh,
You
that's
know, we've
lovely.
got such a we really are building an amazing community. So share, subscribe, and for all of those who are ready to remember. And guys, you know, when we talk about remembering, it really is remembering the essence of who you are. We are all created in the light of God. And when we start remembering that and how powerful that is and what that truly means each and every second of our day, that's when we flip, as I always say, yeah, on the Ankara field, the dark hive, the dark nest. And we turn it back into light, joy, creation, which is what we're here to do. So thank you, everybody. I've so loved hanging out. Share again. Let's see what's going to happen with old Jack and his royal entourage. It's not even a doubt there's a royal entourage there. I have for real thought that. But anyway, let's see. Take it easy, everybody. I will see you in the next few days. Watch the schedule, watch the calendar, and whatever's popping up, we will let you know this week and next week. Take it easy. God bless you
God bless.
all.
Bye, everyone. Good night. Bye.
Stay excited and enjoy your holiday, everybody.